Hello, dear friends of the UNESCO Cities of Music Network. This is Hannover calling with a special episode of our UCOM Hannover Stream Project. My name is Irving Wolter and I started this stream project in May with the support of the UNESCO City of Music Hannover within the Hannover Kulturbüro. And the idea behind this project was to create a platform for musicians, for promoters, for the owners of venues in the UNESCO City of Music Hannover, because after the social distancing measures that started in our city at the end of March, music life was literally shut down and everybody was talking about the help, financial aid from the state, from the federal state, from the city that could help musicians in this difficult situation. But there was no way really for them to interact, to talk about their real problems, about their fears, about their hopes, and especially about the way they cope with the situation and how it's maybe triggering their creative mind, how it's triggering new approaches to music and to the music life in Hanover. So this was the idea behind all this, and I went to the Kulturbüro and they said, fortunately, yes. So I can now present this special edition to you because part of our UCOM stream, which is not scripted, so if I'm telling you some nonsense, don't worry. This is just because everything is live. Well, more or less, because I prepared some captions for you that you can follow easier what we are saying, because there are people from all around the world in this video with different accents, with different ways of speaking in English. So you will have some captions here that will make it easier for you to follow. Yeah, as I told you, the UCOM stream was supposed to give musicians a platform, and it was of course in German, so this would not be so interesting for you to follow. But one part of our stream was always a talk with people from other UNESCO cities of music, so that we in Hanover could see how they are dealing with the situation, what are their best practices, their approaches to help their musicians, to help their music life to go on. In our first episode on the 24th of May, we were inviting the UNESCO City of Music Norrköping, Sandra Wall and Dennis Jonsson, and I'm happy to introduce them again, that they can tell about the situation in Sweden that was, as you know, a little bit particular, different from the approach of other countries all around the world. So, the stage is yours, Sandra and Dennis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Dennis, as part of the music community of UNESCO City of Norrköping, how's the mood on the street and how's the musician, all the community affected by the corona crisis?
Well, of course, it's a pity that is over this whole situation. But the spirit is still there. People are still creating and doing music. So it's Sweden. We just had a period of 6 months of winter, and now the spring is here and everyone's eager for outdoors activities and festivals. But since that doesn't happen right now, people are crawling back into their studios or take their studios home and take the opportunity to create during these months and be prepared for whenever this is over, maybe in the autumn or next summer. People will release new music and be prepared for new live shows. So that's the situation currently.
Yeah, we've seen some innovation. We have a new label, we have new research we have a visualization center here that's looking into the music life, and we have some commissions where musicians, one of our greatest musicians just made a new song for our local soccer team, our football team. But still, it's a very serious situation in Norrköping, and since we don't know how long this will go on, for now it's been okay to have some of our biggest festivals going digital for live stream, like our annual Bob Marley Memorial and such, but it will not make enough money in the end. So how do you feel, how there are very many musicians that have a tough time with their companies, with their income? What's the situation right now?
Well, yeah, of course, yeah, um, um, it's hard, of course, hard to get the economy to spin around this. The good thing is that everyone's getting to learn the live streaming parts, which is good, I think. But that are currently mostly based on donations and not the same as ticket income or getting paid by an event organizer. So of course, it's a big plus that the Art Council has announced that there are money to apply for lack of income. I don't know exactly the numbers, but I heard it's very good.
Next week they will, the state arts council will have 50 million euros going out all over the country. We don't know how much will end up in Norrköping yet, but about 50% of everyone that applied will get to share these 50 million euros.
Yeah, that's a big plus, of course.
Yeah, and the municipalities have a hard time to pitch in since there are so much other things going on. Of course, the situation with healthcare is first priority, but in our music centrum east of Sweden, we've already seen that June and July there is a income loss of 10 million euro already, and we still don't know if there will be more than 50 people gatherings allowed in a couple of more months. So it's a serious situation where a lot of musicians turn to other jobs actually, and in Norrköping there is a lot of food logistics and also what we call the green jobs within the food industry at the farming part. So Dennis, when you hang out, you're also an event manager as well as a musician and DJ. So what do you think has been affected the most, and what's the most serious situation, and what could actually be positive moving forward?
Well, of course, the biggest thing, the most serious thing is, of course, people's health, the health in general, and the restrictions of 50 people gathering is affecting us a lot. At indoors events, we'll see how the summer will be, if they will lighten up those restrictions slightly. But currently, it's 50 people at indoor gatherings, and on all the bars it's table serving, so to say. You can't order at the bar desk, you have to sit in a table and wait till the waitress comes and you can make an order for beers.
Oh yeah, the situation in Sweden, as you well know, it's been slightly different. We've had no lockdown, we've had no quarantine, which means that most things goes on as usual, while the music community have their whole work shut down from 100% to 0 to 20% work. So it's very different when the rest of the society kind of works as usual, but this it got hit really hard, and we still don't really know the effect, how many will still be in business within half a year, and if this keeps going, we have no idea how our music life will work moving forward. So, but we've seen a lot of creativity.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That doesn't
So
happen.
so we have new places, a new label. We have several new clusters, and also the symphony orchestra. Did I tell you
Yeah.
before? They changed their whole season for digital, which is great. So they're still doing their part.
Yeah, it's cool to see that so many are learning these live streaming features so quickly. They are up and running in like from decision to doing is like a 1 week process, getting all the information to make it possible. And it's good arrangements on the digital side, and it's a lot, and it's all genres, I would say. So that's a happy surprise to see that like every weekend you can tune into a couple of different streams and see artists perform live.
Yeah, this weekend we had metal, dance, classic music, amateurs for talent, hunt, and all kinds of pop. So yeah, still going on. Still a lively music city over here. The municipality tries to help out, so we're helping the music organizations. They're not to lose anything. It's tougher for the companies, but also we help the companies with some bills from the municipality, and also trying to help them to get fast decisions on commissions, or opening up outside to have a new kind of scene outdoors.
Yeah.
So we don't know about the Night of Culture yet. So what are you planning to do to try to fit into this new?
Well, yeah, we have an annual event called Technokultur, which is of course means technoculture. In that culture, it's pretty common to play live instruments. So maybe we will do a live show with live instruments, but in techno or somehow. We'll see. But like you can't plan in too many months in advance, since we don't know how next month is going to be. So in September, it's kind of hard to think about the details for now, but we will absolutely do something unless everything is cancelled. But in that case, we might do something small anyways.
Yeah, for now there are some help to get, like the national organization for musicians that we have in Sweden is pretty strong, and they created an emergency funding that's supported by Spotify, a Swedish company you all know about. And of course it helps for now, but we're worried what's coming up ahead, of course, like everyone. And we try to keep in touch. This week there will be an email going out to the Norrköping musicians, where we want to know how they're doing and what they see coming up in the future. And how we
So
can
this
support.
is a very interesting outlook, and of course, in this difficult situation, we need these positive news and information. So thank you so much, Dennis and Sandra, for this interesting insight into the Swedish situation of musicians.
Thank you.
It was a
Please
pleasure.
visit us
Yeah.
in #live in Norrköping. We've opened all our empty stages for live streaming for all of our musicians, so you can find our music. So thank you for inviting us, Hannover, and take care. Be safe.
The second episode of the UCOM Hannover Stream Project was dedicated to the orchestra. After we had talked about The second episode of the UCOM Hannover Stream Project was dedicated to the orchestra. After we had talked about self-employed musicians, now it was more about the ensemble work, and you know, with the aerosols and the infection risk, we wanted to know a little bit more about how this is affecting the ensemble work. So this is why we contacted the UNESCO City of Music Bologna, in a part of Italy that had been particularly affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. And we were very happy that Maestro Fulvio Macciardi was telling about the Teatro Comunale di Bologna and their approach to the COVID-19 pandemic and their ideas to overcome the situation of social distancing.
Really pleasure. We are a very difficult situation because we have probably without announce the previous day, we have cut our performances at the 23rd of February during the repetition, the performances of Madame Butterfly. I remember perfectly in afternoon of Sunday performances. They arrived. They sent them to the theater an announcer from the government of the region, not the general government of Italy, for the region, and we have totally to interrupt. And I have a problem also to put to the end the performance because they wanted to cut widely the performance. I was sure that could be a bigger problem for the people why were very surprised for the interruption of the production. And so we ended the performance, but for the day before, the Monday, the 24th, we cut every production, every relationship with the audience, and we stopped our performances. And at the beginning, with all the people and I, by my part, were thinking that we could restart in a few days. It's a strange situation, but at the beginning, quite everyone in Italy was thinking, and I was, what could I do for 1 or 2 weeks of interruption? Because at the middle of March, it was insuspectable for me to think to have a total my productions cut. But after day by day, we for example, we continued our production, the rehearsals for the next production. It was a Cenerentola by Ticini. And I worked for two more weeks only without the audience because at the beginning the law, Italian law, prohibited to have an audience in theater, but not to interrupt the production, and so rehearsal. But every 10 days we have worst news, and the level of pandemic was also growing, and especially in Lombardia, the nearest region from Emilia-Romagna, and also in the north of Emilia-Romagna, we have an incredible up of the pandemic diffusion. And then at the end of March, they obliged us to close also the doors of the theater. For example, at the beginning for 15 days, and when for 15 days, and we arrived at the beginning of April, done for other 15. And the problem, very, very complicated to organize all those things. That every 15 days they gave us the order to postpone the reopen and until the end of April, and then we did a little clear. And at the end, we could restart with the first hypothesis, little start from the middle of June. So We lost all March, all April, on May, and half of June. Very problematic situation. We put all our employees in a layoff for 3 months, with a very high diminution of their retribution, more than 50%. Terrible, more than 50%. Because in Italy, our layoff had a maximum with a very low level, because they extracted for the payment for the fee of the workers, the basic workers, not for high quality workers like ours. And so very difficult. Now we are thinking to go on to see with a new eyes the future. And for this next months, for this next summer, we have an amazing idea. We take away the seats from the stall. We have a beautiful opera house, original, built in 1763. And think that Christoph Willibald Gluck realized a special production for the opening of our opera house, and he went here and he played the bassoon in 1763. And you know, at the beginning, in that period, the stalls were without seats, no? And so we can reoffer to our audience to see the original tradition of our very ancient theater. And in the middle of the stall, we will put the orchestra with very famous conductors, and we offer for a small group of audience, because the maximum we can have in our theater for all the next summer is maximum 200 people. Terrible. 200 people at very low range. But for us, it's very important to think of the future and to reopen the theater. But actually, in this moment, we have no idea when we could restart in our traditional aspect. I hope in the middle of fall, but not before, because I think there is a very high level of attention by the government to control the level of pandemic diffusion. And so, and another idea we had to offer also work to our employees and performance to our public and to our audience is to offer some performances in a very wide space, like the space for sport, when the basketball or athletic, and there we have some opportunities. Obviously, the sound, the level will be terrible, but we have the opportunity to have a meeting with our audience, to refer to work to our employment, to the singers, to the technical employers. And so I think it's a good idea, waiting to have a new restart for our future, but it's very complicated situation.
Yeah, I imagine. So this is, I think, a situation that all people in the creative cities share. So thank you for sharing your wonderful ideas with us.
Yes, it's a pleasure.
And we keep our fingers crossed that this pandemic will be over soon, and stay safe.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you. Well, the COVID-19 pandemic did not only affect professional musicians, but also those who one day want to become a professional musician. So in the third episode of our Hannover Stream Project, we had a closer look at music schools, at conservatories, and wanted to know whether Zoom and other homeschooling applications could work for masterclasses and in other contexts of higher education. We invited, therefore, two guests from the UNESCO City of Music, Adelaide, to talk about their experiences with Zoom and company, and Professor Carl Crossin and Dr. Luke Dolman from the Elder College of Music at the University of Adelaide were talking about their experience.
So I'll kick things off. I look after the orchestral side of things at the Conservatorium, and Carl looks after the choral side of things. So Carl, how did you find it when this all suddenly started? What was your first reaction, and how did you begin to solve this problem of not being able to work together in person?
I think my first reaction was, what the hell is going on? But once we realized that we weren't going to be able to meet on campus to rehearse, and I think at that stage with the University Chorale, I had had 3 rehearsals. We'd made a fabulous start to the year, and then it all came to a crashing halt. And really not being able to rehearse, we found out pretty soon that Zoom was not going to work as a rehearsal tool. And so I came up with a variety of other activities to keep the students in the chorale engaged. We had some webinars that involved repertoire, listening and discussion. They had pieces that they needed to learn independently. And of course, assessment still had to take place. So that's what we're looking at now. I must admit the activity that we didn't look at was virtual choirs. I know virtual choirs have become fairly popular in recent times. We didn't look at that simply, I think, because it's really an anti-ensemble activity, because the students don't actually end up doing anything together in that place. So that really has been the way that we've done it. It's been a case of trying to keep the students engaged through a variety of activities. Sometimes they've been social, sometimes they've actually been work, but really it's a case of doing whatever one can to keep things active. What about in the orchestral sphere?
Yes, I still remember that day, I guess it was in March sometime, when all of a sudden this tidal wave, if you like, hit us. We should have seen it coming, really, in retrospect. And all of a sudden having to talk to my orchestra and tell them that we're just not going to rehearse anymore. And the look of shock on their faces. It doesn't feel like so long ago, in a way, that we've all been so busy that time has passed very quickly. I briefly thought, you know, we're in for an easy ride here. We're going to get a bit of a holiday, us performers, but it's not been that way at all for us. We've been working even more. I think it's been twice as much work as normal to deliver these things online, because they're just not meant to be done online. So in the orchestras, very much like Carl, we haven't tried to play together, because you quickly realize when you use Zoom that it's just not possible to synchronize things at an appropriate level. So we haven't done the Brady Bunch Orchestra. We avoided that. But we've been working on a range of orchestral excerpts and talking about things around orchestral playing. And there have been some real positives, actually, because quite often we don't get the time to actually stop and just talk about a particular composer or a particular area of symphonic repertoire. We've had lots of guests come in from all over the world, actually, over Zoom, which is one of the wonderful things about this technology. But it has been a difficult period, and I think we're glad to see the back of it, that's for sure. And it's probably worth noting, too, that here in Adelaide, we've had very few coronavirus cases, ultimately. I think around 400 or so. So that's quite a small number, but still it's enough to really fundamentally change our lives. So how do you see things going forwards, Carl, for our second semester?
Well, it's good to know that we will be back on campus in the second semester, able to do some activities. You mentioned before about being able to study, being able to look at things that we ordinarily don't do. And I think that's one of the things that I've thought, all right, well, we know that Zoom doesn't work for rehearsal, but there've been a number of other activities which have actually worked very well. So I'm thinking of keeping going with the webinars that we've been having. I mean, we've looked at national choral scenes, we looked at English choral music, we looked at American choral music, European, Nordic, etc. And the students have really responded to that. So that's one of the things in some way I will keep up with. One of the issues for me, however, is that the size of my chorale, which is close to 70, is too large. Even though we're back on campus, it's still too large to meet as one group. And so for second semester, they're going to be divided up into two smaller choirs. There'll be some repertoire in common. There'll be some different choirs, different repertoire. I think they're actually looking forward to that, to be honest. Luckily, I've got a good profile across the parts to get two balanced groups. And when I told them that information, I think they thought, well, firstly, it'll be good to get back doing stuff. And secondly, they like the idea of the chamber choir. What about in your case?
Yes, we're certainly for our first program, we're doing something similar, I think, in terms of breaking up the orchestra and working with smaller ensembles to start with and to get used to this idea of playing with social distancing. This is going to be a new experience for all of us. From my colleagues who I've spoken to who have already done this, either professionals or at the tertiary level, it works surprisingly well. It's not as bad as you might think, playing with social distancing, and it certainly allows the players to hear themselves a little more than they would under normal circumstances. So there are some positives there. But I think we're also looking with some envy across the Tasman Sea towards our neighbours in New Zealand, who are now at a point where they're getting to work without social distancing, going back to normal almost. So whether that's on the horizon for us, we don't know yet. And this, of course, is a major problem for us right now, I feel. It's just the being unable to plan things clearly with this ever-changing situation. It feels like as soon as you make a plan, it just changes in a few days and you've got to start from scratch again. So yeah, it's keeping us on our toes, that's for sure. But most of all, the most important thing is just to get some musicians back into a room and playing together. And yeah, that's what music making is all about. So I can't wait to get back in there and play some real music together.
Yes, absolutely. You talked about the planning, and I think that's really one of the most frustrating things about this. It's exciting to get back on campus to do things, but not being able to look further than, say, the next 6 months at this stage still provides some challenge. There's a lot of things that were planned for 2021, which of course have been moved a year further on.
Yes, I think we're fortunate in a way, at least with professional orchestras, of course, have to worry about, can we get an audience in? Is 25% of an audience going to be enough numbers-wise to make things work financially? At least from our point of view, that's not something we need to, I mean, of course we want to have an audience, but we can, for the students who are our priority, that's not as much of a concern as it might be for the professional ensembles. So we can plow ahead. Yeah.
So I guess that most musicians in the cities of music will have to face this uncertainty in the forthcoming month. So it was very interesting to hear these different strategies that you're using down under in Adelaide for your university teaching. Thank you so much, Carl and Luke, for giving this insight and for being with us in our show.
Thank you very much, Irving.
Thank you. Vielen Dank.
The social distancing measures were particularly affecting smaller and alternative venues within the UNESCO City of Music Hannover. Not only here, but also in the UNESCO City of Music Liverpool. This is why we were talking at the beginning of July with Rory Taylor from the venue District in Liverpool and with Kevin McManus from the UNESCO City of Music Liverpool.
So yeah, I'm glad to be doing this. We've had Liverpool's had a really good relationship with Hanover since we became a UNESCO City of Music. So I've done quite a lot with Ali Smoser, and we've been lucky enough to send some musicians over there, and we did a collaborative project for one of our festivals last year. So so hello to everyone in Hanover. I'm sure I've met some of you before when I've been over there, and hopefully we'll get over there with Rory at some point as well. Yeah, so we're just going to talk about Liverpool's experiences of COVID, and then in particular how it's impacted on music venues like Rory. So Rory runs a venue called District, which is, I'll let Rory tell you about in a minute. He's also a promoter, DJ, and he promotes a brilliant reggae festival, Positive Vibrations, which was meant to happen in June, but obviously it's been postponed. But I thought first off, we just talk a little bit about how COVID-19 has impacted on the UK in particular and Liverpool. For me, I'm in a vulnerable group, so I've been in, before the country went into lockdown, I was working from home anyway. But I think everybody's well aware that the UK was quite late to shut down. I was at the game at Anfield watching Liverpool play Atletico Madrid just before the shutdown, which, you know, a game which should never have been allowed. But yeah, so we've been really slow in starting starting the shutdown, and we've been pretty ineffective in everything we do, talking about track and trace, and it's not a government that inspires confidence, would you say, Rory?
Not at all, no. And even with the new guidance that's just been released in respect to bars and clubs, it's still a little bit confusing, to say the least.
So before the shutdown was about 20th of March, wasn't it? But I know from most venue owners that I've spoke to, most of them had impacts before that because artists weren't travelling, even where people had bought tickets for gigs and the gigs took place, audiences weren't turning up.
Yep.
So the impact of COVID-19 on the Liverpool music industry probably goes back to the start of February, would you say, Rory?
Yep, definitely, yeah.
Yeah,
it
so
was,
I mean,
say mid 20th of March was for us just the date that the government said, you know, lockdown. But, you know, people, obviously what we were seeing in like countries like Italy, it was worrying people. So people weren't going out to events, and, you know, we screened the football quite a lot in the club, and people weren't coming out watching the games, you know. Yeah, so it's been difficult for quite a long time.
So yeah, so it's, I mean, venues, pubs, bars, venues, nightclubs have all been effectively shut since the middle of March. A lot of them from earlier, with no end in sight. As Rory just referred to, some guidance came out yesterday, which has been as vague as most of the government guidance has been, and it's suggesting you can reduce the safe distance, the social distance to 1 metre, where you can go to get your hair cut from the 4th of July, lots of stuff. But actually, in relation to venues, clubs, festivals, precious little information. That's useful information. Would you say that, Rory?
A lot of the information is kind of, we sort of knew anyway, really. The big thing has been the social distancing. That's really the big thing, because that determines how many people we can have in the space. You know, it's difficult anyway running a grassroots music venue or an independent bar. It's difficult to survive when you do have people walking through the door, but when your capacity is reduced by, I mean, I don't know, it's less than half, it's a quarter. I mean, it's just, it's ridiculous, really. I know the health and safety and the well-being of people is paramount, but in order to open, we have to incur further costs. You know, we have to get perspex in for the bar. We have to obviously get more hand sanitizers in, signage. You know, probably more staff, not just to serve, but to monitor queues, and there's all these costs that we just really can't afford. But like, you know, we're in an area called the Baltic Triangle in Liverpool, and every other venue is opening up on the 4th of July. So, you know, we feel that let's be part of this collective group of venues and try and work together and support one another, guide one another, help one another, because no one's used to this. No one's dealt with a pandemic before. Well, in Liverpool. And we're kind of being asked to use our common sense, which is great. Which for me is just the government, you know, passing any liability onto us. It's your fault. But as I say, we have to give it a shot. What is difficult is that District, like many other venues, we are a live music venue. We're not a multi-purpose space. We are kitted out to showcase live music. So trying to turn it into a kind of more of a bar setting is proving quite difficult.
Because live music's still off the agenda, isn't it? They seem to be saying no live music.
It's no live music, no live performance, and you can't broadcast anything if that broadcast is likely to cause people to be, you know, loud. So what I'm saying is that, you know, Liverpool FC are about to win the Premiership, and we as District, we're a big football venue. We'll be showing the games. And whilst the guidance doesn't say that we can't show the football, the fact is football fans are rowdy, they're loud, they chant, and we're not allowed that. So no football and no live music.
So in terms of, I know you had Positive Vibrations booked in for June, wasn't it? So when did you close that, postpone that, and have you already rescheduled it for next year? And what sort of losses does that mean for a promoter like you? Yeah, so it was a difficult question. In March, when we were asked to kind of lock down, we were a little bit more, whilst everybody was fearful and scared, we were a bit more optimistic about when we could, you know, reopen things. So there was a thought of postponing the festival until later in the year, rather than leaving it an entire year. And some festivals did that, like Liverpool Sound City postponed from May to September, and we were June, but we just thought, it's just too difficult. Yeah. Even if we could do it in September, October, everybody else will want to do the same thing. There'll just be, you know, festivals and events on top of one another. We won't be able to showcase all the bands that we want because they may have prior engagements, you know. So we just thought it's easier to postpone, keep the lineup, keep the venues, keep everything, and just roll it over to next June. So we postponed until June 2021 with the same lineup, and we've encouraged people to keep the ticket. Please keep your ticket. Please keep hold of it, because, you know, you can use it for next year. However, people haven't been working. People are losing money. People don't have an income. So it doesn't matter what you say, even as a grassroots music venue, to people. People are entitled to a refund. And we found that, we had to refund, you know, probably in excess of £4,000 already we've had to refund. And a lot of these people will probably buy tickets again early next year. However, it was pretty difficult because the insurance company doesn't cover this. I don't think the insurance company's covered anybody.
there's costs, there's thousands of pounds that you've already incurred on marketing and promotion that you'll never get back.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty hard hitting for everybody, but especially for smaller grassroots festivals like ourselves, where we get a little bit of public funding now and again, but we are more kind of ticket sales. And if everybody wants a refund, then you can destroy festivals and promotion companies and venues.
So I was just going to talk a little bit about a couple of things we've been able to do. So obviously we're really worried about venues and the whole hospitality sector, venues, bars, restaurants. You know, some have already announced that they're closing. I'll talk to Rory in a minute about how he thinks we'll bounce back. But a couple of things that I've been involved in. We have a Liverpool City Region music board. We had some funding as a successful bid. I asked if we could repurpose some of that money to support the music sector, which was obviously suffering. And what became obvious was the businesses who were suffering were the obvious ones, like Rory's, like venues, musicians themselves, but everyone through recording studios, rehearsal rooms, production services, like tour managers, PR companies that just specialize in music. So it's right across the board, everyone's been hurting. So we managed to reallocate £150,000 of this other budget, and we did a programme where we've managed to support about 50 businesses with small amounts of money, which hopefully will help keep them afloat so that they can emerge when it's a bit more clear about what we can do. More broadly, Culture Liverpool, who I work for, have announced a scheme called Without Walls, which is just trying to help small bars and restaurants to be able to move outside. It's not a big thing in Liverpool, having a drink outside in the street, and it's in lots of ways the streets aren't designed for it in the city centre. So they announced a small fund so that bars could apply to buy furniture so that they could move some of their operation outside so that they could more safely serve people. So I think the city council and the city region government are well aware of the importance of music venues, hospitality, bars, restaurants. Liverpool is a big visitor economy. I mean, you know, it depends on those things. So they're within the constraints of, you know, very limited budgets that the council has. We're trying to do what we can, but it's a major issue. Every section of society in Liverpool is suffering, probably more than most other cities. The evidence is where there's poor, like lots of people living in disadvantaged areas, elderly populations, people who need care, and Liverpool has an awful lot of those categories that are affected more by COVID than other areas of the country. So Liverpool has had really severe problems, but with tiny budgets compared to some other cities, and is trying to do what it can to help people survive. But just on that, Rory, so I know you talk about how you think you should open on the 4th of July because others are. Do you think the sector is resilient enough to bounce back? Do you think the government needs to provide further support for venues? Because some of the messages I've picked up from national colleagues is that venues and bars are saying, if we can't open properly with the normal amount of numbers, we need ongoing support for the businesses because it's not worth us opening in some cases.
Yeah, so I work closely with the Music Venues Trust, which supports every grassroots venue in the UK, and their small team help us so much. You know, they're the ones that go to government and say, you know, listen, we need further support. So basically what's come out of this recent report Music Venues Trust has put together is that, yeah, most of us think that we're not going to survive. We're not going to survive because I said earlier on, even when we can fill the venue, even when, you know, we have a small venue, 300 capacity, even when we can get 300 people in, the margins are still so tight. So, you know, only being able to put 30, 50 people at a 300 cap venue, you know, it's really not commercially viable in my mind. But we have to try it though. We have to give it a go. I may be completely wrong. You know, we may be inundated with people. You know,
you've got an outdoor space as well that you can use, haven't you, which will help.
Yeah, we've got so district is sort of 300 cap venue, and then we've got yard, which is our outdoor space, which is maybe 100 people. But then we've got the back of the club. There's a street called New Bird Street, and there's some big kind of car parking bays that we're allowed to use as like, you know, outdoor seating. So if the weather is nice, like it is now, it could be cool, you know. But my concern is if it rains, you know, if the weather's horrible, I don't know how much. I don't know if district would work as a standalone bar when it's a live music venue. However, if people are going out and wanting a pint and wanting a drink, then we might get people because they can't get into the pub down the road. You know what I mean? So it's still all up in the air at the moment.
Yeah, so let's keep our fingers crossed that the weather will stay fine for the longest time possible.
Yeah, hopefully. Because
thank you so much for being with us and for explaining your very difficult situation in Liverpool. Thank you, Rory. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
One part of music life that definitely could not take place during a pandemic was festivals. So in the 5th episode of the UCOM Hannover Stream Project, we were talking about festival formats in the future and if streaming is a solution for this kind of musical activity. We took this occasion also to talk with the UNESCO City of Music Auckland in New Zealand, which was at that time in a very fortunate situation because there were almost no COVID-19 cases in New Zealand at that time, and slowly the music life with concerts and big events could start again. We have Renée Hermsen from the Pitchfork who can tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, absolutely. So across New Zealand, I think as every other country in the world, sort of late February, we had our first corona cases. There were very low numbers. And by the 14th of March was our last event date. From there on, all the mass gatherings were cancelled or no longer allowed to go ahead. And at the end of March, we went into a quite stringent lockdown for 4 weeks. At that time, I think there was maybe a few hundred cases only in New Zealand. And all that was open was the supermarket, gas stations, and medical facilities. Nothing else. And you were not allowed to see anyone, and you couldn't cross any state borders or, So it was quite stringent, but it was very effective, and they managed to stamp out coronavirus completely. So at late May, we did our first tiny shows again. I think we were one of the first countries in the world where we did a show in front of a live audience again. That was 29th of May, I believe it was. We did the first show in front of 80 people. Sit down. At that stage, it was still 1.5 meters distance. We were quite, we had the contact tracing and everything at the entry, and we did even temperature checks at the entry in the beginning. But yeah, as we were progressing every week, we were doing these shows, and it was very positive. Everyone loved it. Everyone was so happy to be back outside, and amongst other people. And we, and now New Zealand is still in a very good position where we have 0 cases in the country, but there are about 25, I believe it is now, people who are in mandatory quarantine who've returned from overseas who do have COVID. So the biggest thing now is just to make sure those people are, you know, no longer have COVID by the time they enter the public, basically. Yeah. So that's the situation, I guess. That's where we're at in New Zealand.
Yeah, so in a very fortunate position.
Yeah.
But can you already do your festivals as if no COVID had ever existed?
Yeah. 2 weeks ago, the arena here in Auckland, which is the Spark Arena, which holds about up to 10,000 people, and they did their first show, and they had 6,000 people. It was sold out, a slightly different version, free flow mode. So there was just 6,000 people all mingling, and there was no issues. I mean, there was contact tracing, but there was no COVID. Everyone was dancing, moving around, you know. So we can at this stage, and obviously our festival season had kind of just ended because we're in the Southern Hemisphere. So by March, we were actually one of the last festivals. We had a festival on called Beacon Festival, which is a small electronic festival. And yeah, in the morning, in the lead up to the festival, we thought we're not going to be able to make it, but we did. And thankfully, there was no cases confirmed at our festival. So we were the last of the summer. And our festival summer starts sort of December, around New Year's. And at this stage, everyone is very confident that we'll be able to actually pull it off in a ordinary fashion. Yeah. So very, very lucky. Yeah. Feel incredibly, it's a very strange position for us to be in. And it feels a bit like we're at the end of the tunnel at this stage. And obviously that tunnel could any second sort of be closed again or something when we do have community transmission. Yeah.
So does this threat change how the industry works in New Zealand?
Do you mean as per what sort of regulations
are you expecting a second wave to come and doing some special precautions for your concerts?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things right now across the country, not just for the events industry, is the contact tracing, so that if a case was to come out in the community, that it would be the quickest, you know, we would hopefully be able to notify those people that have been in contact very rapidly. And that is and obviously, you know, there's everywhere you look, there is the hand sanitizer and the possibility to wash your hands and all those sort of things. But thankfully, New Zealand at this stage, I don't think we have to prepare for social distancing at concerts or, I mean, it can change any moment, but we've sort of already had a little bit of a introduction to that, as I said, late May, and when we're all doing seated shows, and as obviously a lot of other countries in the world are doing at the moment as well.
Yeah. So thank you, Renee, for this very positive news. It gives us hope that we will see some light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. Oh man, I hope that you guys are not far behind. What is the situation in Germany at this stage? How's it feeling?
Well, we just had the discussion with 2 guys doing festivals here around Hanover, and here in Germany everything had to be cancelled. We cannot think of having a mosh pit in front of a stage at the moment, but we are hoping for a vaccine to restart the traditional festival season next year. Let's keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah. Are they already doing, are other promoters or venues throwing any smaller seated gigs at this stage, or not yet?
Yeah, in some previous episode of this Corona stream, we were talking about that. So for for the medium-sized venues, it's viable, but for the small ones, it's impossible because with the social distancing, they cannot get enough people inside to make it financially viable.
Yeah. Okay.
So, so we're just now we are looking to New Zealand and see how paradise looks like. So thank you so much, Renee, for this precious information. And we say stay healthy, stay safe, and look forward to see you in Germany, or we come over to New Zealand and enjoy your wonderful concerts and festivals.
Thank you very much, and all the best of luck, and to everyone, stay safe indeed.
Thank you so much. Live music is only one part of the music life in the UNESCO City of Music Hanover. So in the 6th episode of our stream project, we were talking about studios and how to monitorize music in COVID-19 times. For this, we had a close contact with the UNESCO City of Music Kingston, and I'm very happy to have Dania Beckford and Tara Johnson from the Harry J Studio again in this special edition of our stream.
Thank you, Irving. Thank you for having us. So welcome to Kingston. I know you can't be here physically, but I'm just letting you know that the sun is shining and everything is great here. I'm hoping that you have some sun. Is that sun I see coming through your window?
Definitely.
Okay, right. So we're actually here at the legendary Harry J Recording Studio in Kingston, Jamaica. And now this studio is very rich in history. It has some of the greats recording here previously. Bob Marley's first 5 albums were done here. Musical greats such as Bob Andy and Marcia Griffiths have recorded here. And lots and lots of reggae iconic music has been done here. So we're welcome to have you here. I have Tara Johnson. She's the managing director of Harry J Studios. And she is about to talk to us about what her expectations were during this COVID period, how she has pivoted during the period, and what will she be doing in the future. So welcome, Tara.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so in Jamaica, our first recorded COVID case was March 10. And by the end of that week, our entire entertainment industry was completely closed down. What was Harry J's studio doing prior to March 10?
Well, prior to March 10, we had started a project called the Set List Project, which was facilitating young musicians and young talent a space where they can come socialize with other producers, other musicians, other artists, other music execs, in a space where we create a curated set list with a set amount of songs where they jam and use that opportunity to showcase their own creativity. And it created a nice, young, happy social vibe and interest, because you would see people going against each other, and you would see people enhancing their skills. They're playing with people that they don't normally play with. You would have musicians that play for other big reggae acts such as Chronics, and you have Desi Jones, different type of musicians. So it was a good experience.
So it was a jam, but it was also developmental for young musicians.
Exactly. We collaborated the two.
Okay. So how big is the studio to hold all of that?
Well, for the room itself, the recording room, it's 625 square footage. So it's a pretty big recording room. And we're not talking about the control area, because the control areas are, but the recording room is big and the ceilings are very high. It's about 15 feet high.
Nice.
So we had the space to do it. And we're like, why not?
And I remember the last set list was a part of Reggae Month, which was in February.
Yes,
right before COVID.
Yes, it was right before it was.
Okay. Definitely right before COVID. Okay, so COVID happened. What did you expect it to be?
All right, so when the announcement happened regarding COVID, especially with our first case, we took the initiative to pause the next stage, because we have set this once a month. So we sent out a broadcast to all of our fans and patrons that normally come and enjoy the experience, that because we were so concerned about their safety, that we'd have to postpone the event until further notice, because we weren't sure what was going to happen. our internal team also did projections as to assume that probably for the next 6 months, that we wouldn't be expecting studio bookings to be on a high level anymore. We expected it to drop drastically because people would have to now be at home, and we weren't sure the level of how dangerous this virus is. Okay. So when we heard that, we did that, but at the same time, we wanted to keep live music, live playing music, something that people don't forget, because music is a source of healing for a lot of persons as well. So even though we weren't able to accommodate bookings because of restrictions on how many people are allowed in a space, which was 10 at the time, we said, all right, let's use the opportunity, keep a very small team, and let's just curate a virtual concert, a small, simple virtual concert setup, and just feed people some music during time.
Right, and I remember right as our borders closed and we had our first case and the entertainment industry was shut down, Bob Andy also died, and he was a friend of your father and he used to record here.
Yes.
So tell me, how did that filter into the creation of the Harry J Live Couch series?
Yes. Well, what had happened is that our team wanted to do something, but initially we started with set lists, but we're like, how are we going to do set lists when set lists normally accommodates a minimum of 10 musicians? So when Bob Andy passed, we also wanted to do something really special for him, especially because of the relations to the studio, and then the whole idea of, okay, let's do a performance curated with a set of songs just dedicated to Bob Andy, and then we said, well, since we're recording songs for Bob Andy, let's just do 2 more episodes. And that's when we created a whole season. We shot everything in 1 day. It took us 3 days to actually plan and execute that one. And we're really happy that we're able to get it done.
So tell me, how did the coach get involved? Because you can't have musicians in your studio without a coach. How did the coach come in? Because it's the Harry J Live Coach series.
So the coach has been here for a while.
Golden coach.
The golden coach has been here for a while. The golden coach probably has been here from before I was born. Wow. To be very honest with you. So
that's
it was
close
just,
to 30 years.
Yes. So it was an asset that we had here, that particular coach. I mean, we have so many different coaches in the studio, but that particular coach has been here for a while. And then we thought, okay, everybody's at home, let's do a relaxed setting. And they're like, well, we don't use the golden coach. And then, we just came up with the coach series.
Okay, so tell me exactly what goes into the Harry J Live Coach series. Is it like set list where there's a curated set list, or do you just go by a vibe? I know the first one was with Bob Andy. It was with songs that Bob Marley did here and some songs that your father produced. Tell me the process you go through in curating that.
All right, so for Coach series, it's something that is created creatively directed by myself. We control in terms of the selection of songs. We also give the artist the opportunity to select songs, but we also do our own internal selection of what can add to enhance the artist's talent. Because sometimes from an artist's perspective, there are certain things that they haven't tried. So we might introduce a particular reggae song that is associated with the studio, because the first series we tried to use everything that was recorded at the studio, and now we have converted it to a situation where the artist does at least one song that is selected from us. We vet the team. When I say team, the artist band, because of course we still have to keep a limited number inside the studio.
Right, because now we're at 20.
Yeah, we're at 20 now, but so
in Jamaica we're allowed gatherings of 20 now. It was 10 before.
Yes, so we have to ensure that it keeps within a certain amount, and we have team meetings where all of us sit down and discuss how we want to approach the next staging and the theme of the performances that the artists that we select would be doing.
So when you finish curating, you release it on YouTube, right?
Yes.
And you have formed a relationship with our major television station here in Jamaica, which is TVJ, and it's also shown on their morning program.
Yes, it is.
Okay, all right. So We also know that because of this whole virtual series and concerts and persons aren't able to physically be together for music, there is a lot of streaming happening. Tell me how you also invested in that for the studio to be able to do that.
So what we have done, we have developed a relationship with Digicel where we have installed equipment on property to facilitate a live stream production, so we can give you quality live stream with quality audio and video. So we're already known to give you quality audio. We have incorporated videos in our production as well, and now with the relationship that we have with Digicel, we can now give you all of that one big package with video, audio, and video and stream. Yeah.
Right. So if I'm an artist and I have to stream to some concert in Sweden, I can come to Heritage Studio and you're able to do it?
We're ready.
Okay. So now that we have realized that we have to be living with COVID, what are your plans for the future?
Well, we're still looking at what's going to happen, but so far we have expanded from just a studio that facilitated audio recording to audio and visual and streaming services. So we have expanded our services for our clients to not only put out our own product, but to facilitate and manage products that other clients want to do. Because we have a perfectly treated room, we have equipment for both backline musical equipment, audio, streaming equipment to facilitate any of our clients' needs in those areas.
In the past 4 months, have bookings increased since March?
Interestingly, we have seen an interesting increase in bookings that we did not expect, and that was on video and audio recording. We've gotten a lot of bookings for live video band recordings. Artists come and they want to create their own content as well as other companies. So, you know, so far so good.
Is there any advice you have for any of the other creative cities of music?
Well, I'm just, well, the thing is, music is not something that that can ever be done with. There's always innovative ways to approach it, and the innovative ways to approach music is to look at the technology and how you can use the technology to get it to the people, because people always need music. People always want entertainment. So it's just a matter of watching and observing customer behavior to understand how to get it to them. So if you bear that in mind, I don't think anyone should have any issues pivoting with whatever challenges that arises.
And it's interesting that she mentions technology, because back in the day, 50 years ago, when her father started this studio, one of the reasons why it was so popular is because he invested heavily in technology. And so with COVID times, Tara, his daughter, has done the same thing. So I believe it has come full circle. So that was my chat with Tara Johnson from Harry J Studios here in Kingston, Jamaica. And I'm hoping that we will be able to collaborate with Hanover pretty soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In the 7th episode of our stream project, we would have loved to talk with the UNESCO City of Music Salvador in Brazil, because we were dealing with the situation of non-professional musicians. And since Salvador has the biggest street carnival in the world, with lots of non-professional musicians being involved in the show, we would have loved to hear about their situation. Unfortunately, the development of the COVID-19 pandemic in Brazil did not allow for live chat. So the last city of music to be in our stream project was the UNESCO City of Music Daegu in South Korea. Yo Hwa-young was telling in the 8th episode of our stream about their situation and how the positive development of the pandemic could suddenly turn to the complete opposite.
Hello, my name is Yu Hwa-young. I live in Daegu City in South Korea. Daegu City is a UNESCO Creative City of Music. I'm the manager of International Cultural Relations. Let me start with telling you a COVID-19 timeline in Korea. January 20th, we got the first confirmed case. A lady Chinese national from Wuhan, Hubei, China. She's got detected with fever at the airport. After a month, February, the number of new cases rise till 1,000. Mostly came from a specific reason and a specific religious group. Right away, schools or galleries or libraries were closed, and exhibition, convention meeting, concerts were cancelled or postponed. Since the beginning of the March, like driving through, walking through, testing facilities in everywhere, and then people get the result in 24 hours. So mass testing, fast result, and separate the virus, it worked well. We call 3T, testing, treating, tracing. It repeated again and again. And March 11th, WHO, World Health Organization, declared COVID-19 a pandemic. March 30th, new cases dropped to 70. It slowed down the spread of virus and flattened the curve of new infection. People were strongly advised to avoid the proximity and densely populated place and enclosed space. And April, May, June, we totally lost our spring joy. But I want you to know that Korea has never been shutting down the country or cities, and never been restricted personal travel and movement. Airports are always open. In July, Daegu has no positive whatsoever, but it didn't mean that we went back to normality. I mean, the GDP declines more than 2% and continue to shed jobs, and less income for both families and government, and which means that less money to spend on arts and culture. August, things got changed. After the summer break, the new confirmed case rise dramatically, and this week we got every day 200 or 300 new cases. We are so disappointed to the people who are not following the social distancing rules. And this week, again, we went back to second level of the social distancing rule and wearing a mask in everywhere, and events which more than 50 people are expected are banned. Actually, Daegu is the second largest art and culture consuming city in Korea. As you can imagine, under this circumstance, arts and culture are forced to shut down. And we are told that we might live with this virus quite a long time. And social distancing, online concert without audience, and limited outdoor activities would become normal. Do you know what? But amid pandemic, I see something very interesting. People adapt this environment very fast. I mean, curiosity never dies. They make their own music, their own dance, their own paintings and messages to loved ones by using their own talent. So I think people become more creative under this circumstance, and this pandemic makes people artists. And anyways, Daegu is losing our color at this moment, but we are for sure that we will go through and overcome this hard time with you, the world. We believe that no one will be safe until we are all safe. So take good care and keep in good spirit. Okay? Cheers. Bye.
So what you have just heard are the statements from 7 UNESCO cities of music all around the world. What is missing is the situation in Hanover, of course, because in our stream project we were talking about our situation only in German. So in order to explain what happened here in Hanover, I have a special guest who will talk about it in English. So let's see what he's going to tell us. So after 7 episodes of the UCOM Hannover Corona stream, we are now closing this first series of streams with a talk with the head of the Hannover Kulturbüro, Dr. Benedikt Pönsken. Thank you for being with us today.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Dr. Pönsken, how did the COVID-19 pandemic affect the music scene in Hanover? How did it come about? How did it strike in the UNESCO City of Music Hanover?
Well, I suppose as in all UNESCO cities of music, it was a very hard strike here in Hanover, and one which came upon us without really much preparation. I can remember sort of hearing about things developing in other countries, of course, but couldn't really imagine how it would affect then our cultural life in Hanover. And I suppose nobody really knew what was coming. So of course we were all sort of hit on the head and had to change plans, cancel things from one day more or less to the other, which affected, of course, the whole cultural activities very much, and especially all those freelance musicians that depend with their income and with their daily life on freelance projects, were hit, of course, even harder than musicians in a state opera house or so that have a contract that pays them at least for the daily or for the monthly expenses. So that is still a very, very difficult situation for all those people that are working in the cultural scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have been talking with various people that are part of the music scene in Hanover during this Corona stream. So after the lockdown, the whole cultural life in Hanover suddenly froze in some way. So what did the Kulturbüro do? I think this was a period where you had lots of work to do to cope with the situation.
Of course, one imagines people, friends ask me, you probably went home and drink coffee or so and waited, but it was a very hectic time for us in this office, because lots of people, of course, having questions of how things can be done. There are, of course, a lot of public money in projects and people asking, can we keep the money? How do we do it now? If we cancel, what happens with the town's money? Can we pay it all the same as a sort of cancellation fee to the musicians involved? Or do we have to give it back because there couldn't be a performance? And all those questions we weren't prepared on. So we had to organize ourselves also in the first place to give the same answer to each question for each people that asks, and not to tell the one you can keep the money and the next one, no, you have to give it back. And so there's lots of organization work in the first time to stabilize the situation and to know what we have to do and to communicate amongst us and to talk with other public funds or other public sponsors. How do you do it? Can we do it this way to help the musicians the best way we can? Other restrictions, what do we have to observe, and so on and so on. So that took a little time to get us stabilized in all those answers. And that I think we got done quite well. And of course the German federal state helped us in a way that they said very early, we want to keep the money which we gave to projects as much as possible in the projects. We want to tell them that they can prolong the project until through the next year. So if they have to cancel or to postpone a performance, they can do it maybe later in the year or even in the next year, and they can keep their money which they had already been paid. They don't have to give it back and not know whether they get it back in the second time anymore. And all those questions, that was the first stage of it. And then the second stage was to build a new fund, a new amount of money to be able to help those that suffer maybe most, and to help the cultural institutions that we have, because obviously if an organization is not able to come back after the pandemic, then we will have less cultural life in the town, which is then of course also for each musician or each artist then a severe situation. So we have to help also the cultural houses and the theaters and the little clubs and so on, so that they can maybe survive or hopefully survive. And thankfully the town of Hanover then decided to put up an own helping amount of money, which we were able to give now to several institutions and to individual people that applied for project money. That's all. Maybe it could be more, of course, but and surely could be more, but there are important steps.
So we're talking about reacting to a crisis. So this is already a very, very huge task to help all these people that suddenly cannot do work anymore and to find solutions for them. But do you feel that this COVID pandemic also had some positive impacts? We were talking to some to musicians and promoters during the stream, and also asking them for the innovative potential of the situation. Do you feel this also affected or triggered the innovative potential within the Kulturbüro?
Yes, I mean what a crisis leads always to very substantial questions also for everybody of us. What is the real important thing of what we are doing? Why are we doing it? Why do we want to continue doing it? And what and who else in this town has the same problems and is maybe, and together one can be stronger than in being an individual with one's demands. And so we found and saw that people connected to each other that weren't connected before, that people got together in new projects or in new ways of tackling this situation. And for that, I think this situation created new networks or more intensely lived networks than there were before. And I think the consequence of this will of course be seen only in the months to come, but we helped, for example, in open air stages with the digital formats, people playing in studios that never that gave their space to musicians to perform there and to be broadcasted, streamed, and so on. And people were able to play in those professional studios that before never entered them and never either maybe knew that they existed or were allowed to perform there and so on. So also between the different sort of categories or also different what you call it, parts of the music scene. The jazzers got together with the classical people, and the rock musicians got suddenly together with the blues people and so on. And there was a sort of movement also between the different spheres that wasn't so intense before. So we experienced that, and we pushed that also, or gave money to projects that connected people and made things possible in these times. So yes, I think people were quite creative and tried to look for new ways of communicating, of performing, of communicating with their audience all the same. And people came to us that never before asked for federal or for state money, because they didn't need to before, but in the situation they needed help. And of course, that creates talks and new possibilities because one knows of each other better. And so that is sort of my hope of what we take with us from this time. And of course, that is all good, but this situation needs to end or get less severe, hopefully sooner than later. Meaning one can always get over some months, but one has to know where one can perform again, one can use the clubs and so on. The time shouldn't be too far away, and of course we still don't know how long the situation will last and what next autumn, winter, spring will bring. But that is then going to be the next big question, I think, how we can help in the months to come.
Yeah, we will closely follow these developments in the forthcoming months in the next series of UCOM Hannover streams. And yes, I thank you so much, Dr. Pönsken, to have explained a bit the situation of Hanover.
Maybe one thought which I'd like to add is what we are thinking about at the moment is to put small spaces into medium-large spaces and medium-large spaces into large spaces in order so that culture can happen for people that use small spaces. They cannot perform in small spaces because only little people can come, of course, a small quantity of people. And when they are moved into larger spaces, then they can have the 100 people coming to their theater performance. And the very big ones cannot happen anyway. So it's sort of a movement of spaces and rooms and concert spaces in order to make things possible again. And I think we started with a little program here with a big room for local artists, and I think that will be what we are looking for in the next months to get things or to make things possible. Not in the original room because there it's difficult, but in larger rooms for them and sort of a moving, enabling culture to happen. That needs money, of course, but yeah, that's what we are for.
But this is beautiful to hear, to see that the pandemic is triggering the true spirit of solidarity, because yes, the venues are supporting the smaller ones to help them to survive in this difficult situation.
Yeah, that's what we need. What's happening, thank God, also, yes.
Okay, so as I told, we are going to follow this development in the forthcoming months closely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pönsken, for explaining the situation in Hanover to us. And we keep our fingers crossed that the situation will will get better and better and better, and they will have this true spirit of solidarity also after the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes, and best practice sort of things is what is also very helpful to hear from other music cities what they are doing, and to learn from each other is very important, I think, in this situation. So that's what you are doing to help communicate between us, which is great.
Thank you. So, as you can see, music is still alive within the UNESCO Creative Cities Network. Not only in this project, but also in various other projects that we managed to do during this COVID-19 pandemic. For example, at the occasion of the Fête de la Musique on the 21st of June, we did a digital band mashup with musicians from various other UNESCO cities of music, from Poznan, from Liverpool, from Auckland, and from our partner city Rouen in France. So this was a very interesting common project. We also did something together with the UNESCO City of Music Frutillar in Chile, and we are looking forward to work with you, with all the other creative cities, with all the other cities of music within the Creative Cities Network. So if you want to talk about the music life in your city of music, you're welcome to contact us, and I will be pleased to invite you in one of the forthcoming episodes of the UCOM Hannover Stream Project. So I want to thank you to all the people who made this project possible, that you can see here, and I am looking forward to see you soon in one of the next episodes. The second series of our streams will start in October. Thank you so much for being with us, and I hope, and we all hope from Hanover, to see you soon in our beautiful city. Bye bye.